Good evening, everybody. This is Kamla from Urth Electronic Bangalore from the SC Group. Today's webinar is on IoT. So today, before we start, I would like to give a brief introduction on our company. Primarily, the global vision of our group, which is based in Germany, is to be the primary contact for all who are working on innovative electronic solutions. Urth Electronic India is part of Urth Electronic Global. This group is located in Nidenhall, Germany, and we have close to 8,000 employees worldwide. And there are around 14 production locations worldwide. Our company here is basically into PCB and PCB-based solutions. We are your #1 partners for that. We are also a one-stop solution for all your electronic device developers and manufacturers. We handhold our customers in project management, system engineering, CAM, and we have also different tools like Allegro, Altium, PAS, etc. So we are in with you from the design phase till the serial production phase. And our offices are located in Bangalore and in Mysore. We have 4 business units: circuit board technology, system engineering, who will be presenting today's webinar; computer aided manufacturing CAM, which is located primarily in Mysore; and the intelligent control systems business unit. As you can see, PCB CBT division mainly deals with printed circuit boards. System engineering is in the layout and testing and designing of PCBs. And computer aided manufacturing, which is located in Mysore, primarily is focused on our parent company in Nidenhall, and we do our design editing there. And the ICS group sells very small components, which are mainly catering to the automotive industry. We also have grown tremendously in the last 15 years, from 10 employees to close to 200 plus employees. We are also certified in ISO certification and IATF certified. ICS group is IATF certified since they cater to the automotive industry, and our SC, CAM, and CBT are ISO certified in their respective domain. Now, coming back to the business units, we have the 4 business units, like I mentioned before. The circuit board technology, they are involved in mainly in trading of PCB boards. We have the standard and the multi-layer up to 30 layers. We also have different kinds of PCB boards, the flexi-rigid, and also we not only sell the boards, but we do handhold our customers in the quality checks of the boards that we do sell them. And also we help them in project management. And in system engineering group, we are making the main focus is giving quality designs and getting it right the first time. We do provide technical consultancy to the customers. We have very senior engineers who have vast experience in this field. And one of our presenter, Mr. Raghavendra, is also a senior engineer here. He has a lot of experience in this field. So we do believe in giving quality, design, and we do thermal engineering management, and we also do validation of designs. We are also compliant with IEEE and ANSI standards, and we do simulations in signal integrity, power integrity, EMI simulations, and thermal analysis. Now, coming back to the intelligent power and control systems, basically these are we do sell components that are very small, compact in size, that have high current capabilities and are very lightweight, low in weight, and they have very good resistance to harsh thermal environmental conditions. Their main focus is to minimize the wires that are in the components, connecting the components rather, and also to have a lot of components in the given area. Coming back to the computer aided manufacturing business unit, sorry, they do have CAM capabilities in high speed PCBs, rigid flex and flex board designs, motherboards, backplanes and evaluation boards, HDI and complex multi-layers, and high current and high voltage board designs. Now coming to the main webinar today, the IoT and 5G RF. Today's presenters are Murugesh, who is our engineer in the SC division. He has an engineering degree from Harihara, and Mr. Raghavendra, who is our senior engineer and team lead for in the SC division. Now, before I start the webinar, I hand over the webinar. I would like to give a quote from Kevin Aston, who gave the term IoT, Internet of Things. He said that the Internet of Things has the potential to change the world, just as the Internet did, maybe even more. And he also interestingly said that the Internet of Things is about empowering computers so that they can see, hear, and smell the world for themselves. It may sound very abstract now, but it's also a reality in the coming future. And this IoT is not a concept, it's a network, the true technology enabled networks of all networks. So now I will hand it over to Murugesh, who will give the initial introduction and briefly go over the different first few topics on the agenda, and then Mr. Raghavendra will take it over.
Thank you, Kalanam, for the brief introduction and also the quote about the IoT. Good evening, everyone. The agenda of today's webinar will be as follows. Like initially, we'll be going through the what is IoT and its overview, and then followed by the industrial revolution, and then IoT enabled by 5G, and then top 10 challenges for PCB designer when it comes to the IoT products, and then RF concepts, do's and don'ts in the RF PCB design, and then upcoming webinar and career set at the last. So let us begin. Like what is IoT? So it definition says that it is an ecosystem of connected physical objects which are accessible throughout the internet. So like we all are connected to this webinar with our own laptops and mobiles, which is also a kind of platform for the IoT. So basically any device which has an IP address and has ability to collect, process and transfer it over the internet without any manual intervention is an IoT application. So like it could be a human with his heart monitor and also an automobile with its embedded sensor which processes its data and sends it through the internet. So it will be helpful. And why is IoT is required means in 1999, an article related to the RFID mentioned that if we had computers which can collect all the data which is there to be collected, with the help of the data that they have collected without any help from us, we would be able to greatly reduce the cost waste in a great way. We will be able to determine when the things need repairing or replacement or recalling, and also we will be able to determine whether the things are fresh or they are out of date. So this is what exactly an IoT platform does for us. It will enable the devices to observe, identify, and sense the surroundings without any help from us. So the main task is that we need to empower the computers in their own way of collecting their data. So without any help from us, they can collect their data and they can hear and sense the surroundings around them, so that they can understand the environment. The scope of IoT is not limited to any few applications. It can be used in many ways, and few of the applications are shown below. And most of the applications are like we'll use it in our day-to-day life, like vehicle monitoring, farming, smart homes, smart hospitals, payments, human variables, and environment controlling it, etc. A simple example could be a water level monitoring and controller, which will turn on your home's water pump when the tank is empty, and automatically turns it off when the tank is full with the help of sensors and other devices. And also when it comes to the smart homes, we'll be able to control our home accessories like our water heater, music systems, and many other like coffee machines, right? And the same way we'll be able to control many devices autonomously with the help of IoT devices. So IoT for OEMs. With the help of Internet of Things, manufacturers can give their product a digital identity. With the help of that digital identity, they can track the exact location, usage, and condition of the products, which will help them to manage their supply chain management even better. Like we all have our mobile phones with the digital identity called IMEI, which enables the manufacturer to track the usage and provide you the software updates and functions when it is really needed for you and it is available for your device. So it will help them in the it will also help them in them for their future products so that they can upgrade and provide better functions. It will open new opportunities for OEMs to provide value-added services also when in their future products. And also it will give them better insights into the supply chain management, and also they can extend their product capabilities and life cycle in their upcoming products. And IoT for consumers. The adoption of connected devices such as human wearables and smart devices for the home is rising, and that 30% of the people already own or plan to own an IoT device in the next few years. Some of the key benefits of the connected devices for the customer are as listed. Like it will be providing you the ability to control and monitor the devices of peace of mind, like your music system, and improve the energy efficiency of the household devices. With the help of smart devices, we will be able to control the power consumption of the device and the efficient usage, which will also directly increase the life cycle of the products. With the ability of multiple connected devices integrated together, we will also improve the customer experience, and also they'll be having the ability to for the products to manage themselves. Next, we will be coming to the industrial revolution. As we know, there are 4 industrial revolutions, namely Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0. In the Industry 1.0, the use of mechanical instruments, steam powder, and weaving looms are developed. In the Industry 2.0, mass production line, manufacturing lines, and the help of electrical energy are developed. In the Industry 3.0, with the help of advanced computers, many automations were made in the production systems and also in the product development cycle. And in the Industry 4.0, which is currently in the development, has included Internet of Things and development with the more productivity and reduced human interactions. So the first industrial revolution, which is began in the 18th century, through the use of steam powder and mechanization of products, which has achieved 8 times the volume of the same time, increasing the human productivity. So the graphical representation it shows here represents the same. And the second industrial revolution, which has begun in the 19th century, through the discovery of electricity and assembly assembly lines, is significantly faster and at a lower cost in the product development. And the third industrial revolution, which has begun in the 20th century, through the partial automation using memories and computers, which enable to automate entire production process. So now we are currently in the implementing the 4th industrial revolution. It builds on the developments of the 3rd industrial revolution that are production-based systems that already own computer technology, and now they will be expanded by a network connection, which allow them to communicate with other facilities and output the information about themselves. So therefore, smart factories are coming into existence. Industry 4.0 has the potential to deliver some incredible advances in the factory environments, which includes like machines which can predict the failures and trigger the maintenance by themselves when there is a failure. And also it will be done autonomously without any human interaction. It has the power to change the way that people work. Industry 4.0 can pull individual into smarter network with the potential of more efficient working. In short, if you want to say that Industry 4.0 is a game changer across the industrial settings, which will change the way that goods are made and distributed and how the products are serviced and redefined. And next, we will be coming to the IoT enabled 5G. In these slides, we will be discussing what does 5G mean for IoT and how it will change the way that IoT devices are being developed and used. Since we are connecting multiple devices to a network, they were demanding higher frequency and bandwidth, which is required to transfer the data over the internet, and it is not sufficient with the present technology. The demand of extreme 5G speeds and RF designs are as follows, like it may be IoT devices, connected vehicles, smart homes, cities, healthcare, media, agriculture, and many more. So as the 5G offers 10x less latency, 50x more speed, and 1000x of more capacity of data transfer. Like if you go for a hospital for a health check, with the help of IoT and its functionality, once your checkups are completed, all your results will be updated to the hospital database. And the physician can take the reports from the database and give him consultation remotely. It's a proper queuing and maintaining the hard copies of reports and certain hurdles. So 5G technology. So 5G and IoT technologies is more than just a new generation of wireless technology. It represents a fundamental change in the mobile ecosystem with ultra-fast download speed, unleashing a powerful combination of extraordinary speed, expanded bandwidth, low latency, and increased power efficiency. which will deliver by 5G network and enables billions of IoT devices to be coming online. As we mentioned, current technology does not deliver just enough speed or bandwidth for IoT devices to perform their best. So the 5G will allow hundred or thousands of IoT devices to communicate simultaneously in the same network. Like the minimum speed for the 5G, it will be from 6 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz. So then the design challenges in the 5G technology. Like since 5G is just beginning, there are a lot of hurdles for both hardware layout engineers to meet the certain requirements which are required by the 5G. A few of those challenges are listed below, like limited RF knowledge, idiot tools simulation for RF, and complex wire stitching, etc. More about these design challenges we'll be discussing on later in this webinar. Then we'll be, if we talk about the PCB features trends by 5G, there are follows like next level of complexity in the PCB will be coming, and there will be tight tolerances, new cost-efficient materials, thin cores, SiP substrates, rigid flex technologies, HDI, fine line and fine pitch components, and PCB with cavity, material ultra low loss materials, and hybrid stackups, new thermal solutions with copper inlay and embedded. Next, if we come to the top 10 challenges for the PCB designers when they are designing an IoT device. The challenges are as follows, like the first will be every inch of the layout space matters, working with the newer packaging and technologies, designing an entire product, not just a PCB. PCB designer works close with the mechanical designer, design reuse options in EDA tools, working with the new PCB materials, power plan and power consumption, wireless modules and protocols, design constraints of human body, and then the last is the design reliability. We'll be going one by one. So the first challenge for designer is every inch of the layout space matters. As shown in the right side image, it shows an decapped Apple Watch, and its dimensions around 38 by 33 mm, and the depth of the PCB is only 11 with the weight of 28 grams. So in that small space of area, they accommodated their own SoC processor, memory chips, LED display, and the long-lasting battery, and many more sensors. So you can bet the engineers who design these kind of PCBs, they're fighting for each and every space in their PCB to accommodate these all components and make them work. So to achieve this kind of compact functionality, the technologies like HDI, flexible PCB are using these technologies will be a top challenge. Next, working on the newer packaging technologies. So as we have have to achieve the compact functionality as shown in the previous slides, the new packages with advanced technologies are also coming into existence. So as shown here, multi-chip modules, which will reduce the space by keeping the multiple integrated circuits on a single die. And the next one is like a system in packages, which will consist of multiple systems like digital logics, analog, and RF on a single chip, and it will also reduce the space on your PCB. And then the 3D ICs, which allows you to stack multiple silicon dies vertically and acts as a single device on our PCB. And it also has the advantage of reduced power consumption and smaller footprint, which will directly reduce the, which will also increase the space availability in the PCB. So the challenges will be like following all the required guidelines for the specific modules or ICs within the package and also in the PCB. And the third challenge is designing an entire product, not just a PCB. Like as a PCB designer, we should not only be concentrated on finishing the layout and providing garbage to the next process. We will be considering the process in product development and also do more virtual prototyping in the terms of PCB size, weight, and its application. And also focus on fabrication, assembly, and testing point of view. And we should also forecast how the product is going to be, which will directly leads to the next challenge, that is working close with the mechanical designer. So the days of receiving DXF from the mechanical team and placing components as per it will be gone. Since the IoT devices are going to be very small and compact, we should work parallel with the mechanical point of view and discuss how the design can be improved. Most of the ECAD and MCAD tools bring engineers closer with all the data together in one tool at one place, which will help them to communicate better. That means in the journey of product development, any changes in both mechanical and circuit being shared between the engineering disciplines in the real time when you're designing an IoT product. So the design reuse option in the EDA tool. So most of the IoT devices will be having the common functions, which also include the similar circuitry which can be replicated or reused from the existing design, which has already been simulated and proven to be working properly. So no need to design those block of schematic or layout. again in the when you're doing a new design. So the traditional schematic design will become a modular design, and most of the EDA tools offer these kind of design use options, which will save the engineers time and effort by taking those sections from the old design, which has proven to be working, and they can use it in the new designs. And the next will be power planning and power consumption. So, So the next will be like working with the new PCB materials. So the days of using the basic FR4 materials and the square shaped PCB will be over. Like most of the IoT devices are having a various kinds of shapes, since most of them are human variables and also they are compact in size. So in the age of IoT, the circuitry needs to be flexible, and also sometimes it may need to be embedded inside the materials. So we will be moving on to the new PCB materials, which will give more challenges to the designers in terms of stack up or following the specific guidelines. Like the materials may be like plastic, rigid flex copper, and even mesh. And the next challenge will be like power plan and the power consumption. Most of the IoT devices are being dependent on the batteries and power harvesting techniques by themselves. So keeping them running all throughout the day will be the challenge. So and also power consumption by these IoT devices will be less, and also the size of the PCB will also be less. The power management will be a challenge. So the layout has to be planned from the initial stage itself, and also each circuitry in the device gives its own power budget. So it is also a challenge that we need to meet those power budget by considering the whole power consumption of your device. Chances are like you may talk to the component supplier if you are running out of your power consumption problems, and they might be suggesting other components which are coming under your power consumption and your power budgets. Then working with the wireless modules and protocols. Since IoT and 5G are being dependent on the true wireless technologies with the sensors and embedded protocols, which allow them to sense their surroundings and understand the environment and collect the data and process it and send it over. Understanding these modules with their special guidelines and maintaining EMI or radiations will be a challenge. So few of the modules and protocols related to the wireless technology are as shown below. Like if you come to the infrastructure, there will be IPv4 and IPv6, and the identification there is like an IPv6 and URLs. So communication and transport, it will be Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and WAN. And discovery, it will be physical web, DNS, and for the data, it will be WebSocket and Node, and etc. There are many more other modules and protocols which you need to follow in the IoT devices. And the design constraints of a human body. So since most of the IoT devices are human variables, so here the problem that the human body is, it's extremely lossy. Like this can spill the business for maintaining a strong signal and transmitting the data. So most of the IoT devices are having the PCB and products need to be developed in a way that they are not harmful for the human body, and also like it will not affect the health of the human. So maintaining those radiations with the proper layout and product design, and try to emit those electromagnetic radiations away from the human body. This requires some special knowledge and use of components which are having less noise and radiations. And then the last one is like a design reliability. So IoT devices need to be taken care when the thermal management also. Because most of these devices are relying on the battery, and the chances of the designer will be paying more attention to the thermal management, as most of the devices and processor is more likely to be getting heated. And also these devices are compact and enclosed completely. So the providing cooling for these devices would be also a problem. And we should also seeing from the component wise thermal characteristics, like few components may require constant temperature and may work differently in the different temperatures. So providing proper thermal management for the devices and PCB is also a challenge. Along with these, there are many more challenges with the signal integrity or manufacturing, etc. And further, we'll be discussing on RF process, and I would like to share screen with Mr. Raghunath.
Thanks, Murugesh, for giving some insights into what is 5G and what is that 5G can offer, and what are the concepts or the industrial revolution of IoT that is going to start. That is the industrial revolution 4.0, which is going to be the future of our any technology. If you see, like whether it is at home or whether it is at office or whether it is at production lines, Industrial 4.0 is going to be the future that we will be looking into, considering the 5G technology that will be coming up. So whenever we talk about RF, there are a lot of concepts that as a designer we need to know. Generally, if you can see that, okay, over the time, we do not have any specific guidelines that we need to follow in order to say that, okay, I can achieve a successful RF design. So this is always backed through some concepts that we are aware of and some of the simulations that we simulate at the prior stage of the design, and then we validate those simulation results. So some of the concepts that we will be looking here would be that via stub. So whatever via stub is, whenever I have a particular stack up, and if I am routing those signals in specific layers, and rest of the layers is going to act as stub for me. So this is okay for signals which are less than 1 Gbps, but as my frequency increases more than 1 Gbps, then it could be a dilemma. So the dilemma is that, okay, it induces the parasitic inductance and parasitic capacitance. So considering this, we need to eliminate this stub. So this stub can be either eliminated through back drilling process, or we can go for the HDI technology. So it's a simple graphical representation of a via stub in 3D. So you can see on the right hand figure that, okay, there is a stub that is shown at the bottom of the via. So this stub, as I told, doesn't matter for any frequency which is less than 1 Gbps. But the moment I say any RF PCB or any RF application, whether it could be IoT, so the starting frequency itself will be more than 1 Gbps. So to be precise, we will be dealing with signals which are at least a minimum of 6 Gbps on the PCB when we deal with the IoT applications. So as I told, back drilling was one of the options where we can eliminate this stuff. The other option is we can opt for HDI technology. The key concern again here is when to choose for back drilling and when to choose for HDI. So the user has an option either to go for HDI when there are lot many of your signals which are high speed in nature, and you can opt for back drilling only when you have certain specific signals that are running at higher data rates of more than 5 Gbps or 6 Gbps. So the option is clearly in the hands of the designer to choose either he can opt for HDI or on back drilling as an option. So considering this, the other option also the designers today have is that, okay, considering the cost optimization, they can opt for hybrid stackup. So hybrid stackup definitely gives the designer an advantage that, okay, he can compensate on the cost of going for high speed material for the entire design. Instead, he can opt for a specific stack up where he can say that, okay, the material will be used for special high speed signals where losses are going to be very important. So in that case, he can opt for hybrid stack up. So differential coplanar waveguide with ground as reference. So we can see that, okay, many RF designs, we shield the differential pair with ground bias. So this will give a stitching to the other adjacent ground layers, okay, which eliminates most of the noise that is going to be picked up across the plane. So this eliminates that particular concept of the noise that is going to be picked up. And the other thing is that, okay, whatever spacing you follow for via to via is not mandatory that it has to be a specific value. So as far as you follow the thumb rule of 1/10 of your 1/4 of your wavelength, that is enough between the two wires, the gap that is to be considered. So but shielding definitely is going to be uh, eliminating a lot of your crosstalk as well as noise between your differential pairs, especially for RF signals. So ground bias in RF shielding. So we can see that okay, there is no specific pattern of shielding the ground bias in RF designs, especially. Maybe if you talk about a digital board, we can talk and say that okay, there is a specific pattern that we can follow for shielding the ground bias. Whereas when we come for RF, it could be too complex, and most of the times it could be also simulation based in placing the bias. RF shields. So PCB mounted shields come in several types. So close proximity between shields and nearby parts impact the impedance. So the main intention of shielding the RF section of the PCB is to ensure that okay, that does not interfere with other analog or digital section of the PCB. So today you can see in most of the RF designs, you can see the RF shields like compartments that are placed on the PCB. RF observers. So many of you would have not come across what exactly are these RF observers. So RF observers are typically which take away the radiation and then release that in the form of heat. Okay, so they are available in custom size, which fits actually based on whether you are planning to have the RF observer for a component or a specific section of the PCB. So these RF observers are completely customizable and they can be used. So now if you have a question telling that, okay, why the RF observers, whatever the heat they release, which they have the radiations are released in the form of heat. So now the question is whether this heat is going to have any impact on my overall heat that is produced by the PCB or the system. So to answer that, it's a simple. So whatever heat that is being generated by these RF observers is going to be so minimal that it is completely negligible when you compare it with your heat that is going to be dissipated from the component or from the overall PCB. So RF shields. So RF PCBs are frequently contained in milled aluminum enclosures with integrated milled shields. So the compartments again come in different milled shield form factors. So that can be used in your designs to isolate from your other sections of the digital circuitry or RF circuitry. So isolation between circuits. So this is a sample example of how to isolate your circuits within a compartment of your circuitry. So this compartment of circuitry can be severally placed in your entire design. So one such example is shown in the figure. Impedance controlled RF via. So in RF, we also would like to have our vias also to be impedance controlled. So that is the reason we have the embedded local return path for these RF vias, so that we maintain the frequency of these vias. So if at all we do not maintain the impedance of this via RF via, then we will have a discontinuity, because of which we will have the reflections in the signal. There are some of do's and don'ts that we need to follow whenever we deal with any RF design. So some of which will be discussed. So power plane. So whenever we talk about power plane, distributed power planes between two ground planes decouples supply and ground and is a low impedance path at radio frequencies. So we need to ensure that okay, power planes to the edge of the card will create parasitic radiation. So that is the reason we should always make sure that okay, our ground power plane is surrounding the power plane. So that means I need to pull back my power plane where h is the distance between my ground and power plane, so that we can mitigate the fringing field effects that is going to come across the power plane. Sensitive RF traces. So whenever we have sensitive RF traces, multi-layer boards allows for a continuous grounding strategy to isolate and minimize noise on sensitive traces. So you can see there are two scenarios where we have the ground that is being properly poured. So if you can see on the first instance on the top, we can see that okay, there is no proper shielding of ground, whereas in the second instance we have a proper shielding of the ground. So do not route return current paths under sensitive RF traces. Instead, use common low impedance ground planes under the sensitive RF traces. So it is always recommended that okay, we have a solid return path for all the sensitive RF traces. So transmission line, wherever possible, employ microstrip and strip line transmission lines. For a 4-layer PCB, make these type of transmission lines easier to implement, and it is very effective from the perspective of having proper return path. So for a 2-layer PCB, thickness should not exceed more than 30 mils. Otherwise, the required width of the transmission line trace will become rather too large. So keep in mind always, whenever you have a 2-layer PCB for any RF application, the thickness should not be increased more than 30 mils. Current loops. So always when you are having the decoupling capacitors placed close to the ground, then it will minimize the current loop. So if at all it is far away from the ground, then the loop increases. So the effectiveness of the decoupling capacitors will be reduced. So that is the reason we say avoid capacitive coupling. Instead, ensure each port pin has its own decoupling to ground through a dedicated ground via. So always make sure whenever you have a decoupling capacitor, do not share the ground via or the power via. Instead, have a dedicated power via and a dedicated ground via. PCB parasitics. As I told, PCB parasitics, if at all not addressed on the PCB, can have a lot of impact on the filters that we place. It could be the filtering circuitry or the EMI filter that we place on the PCB will lose its full potential to serve the effectiveness if we have PCB parasitics on the PCB. So it is important to understand the RF characteristics of the PCB material that will be used. Long traces look like inductors and pads over a ground look like capacitors. So that is the reason we ensure that okay, in any RF design, we need to make sure that okay, the traces, if they are kept as short as possible, it's very much important so that the inductance is reduced, because of which my parasitic inductance and capacitance is going to be decreased. Vias in a typical thickness 1.6 mm PCB can have parasitic capacitance of approximately 0.5 picofarad and parasitic inductance of 1.2 nanohenry. Ensuring that the via spacing is of the order of lambda by 30 can eliminate this. So we need to be in close proximity when we are placing these vias. Thermal relief pad. So always it is recommended that I have the thermal pad and I should have all my ground pins of the IC to be connected to the thermal pad instead of being connected to the external ground directly. So it gives better heat dissipation when compared to the vias that are directly connected to the ground plane. So always avoid this, and always avoid uneven thermal dissipation and parasitic inductance by placing several parallel vias. So any manufacturer, if he has recommended to place say 9 vias that are to be placed on the thermal pad, you have to just place 9 thermal pads. So overdoing the design by placing extra number of thermal vias can also have an impact of increasing the parasitic inductance. So you need to be sure that okay, what is recommended has to be implemented, beyond which is not going to solve the purpose. Also, it is going to create more of parasitic inductance. So capacitor pads with RF signals. So on the left hand side, you can see that okay, we have kept the traces as short as possible with multiple vias. So those are recommended, that has to be followed in any RF design. And the one on the right hand side where the traces are long between capacitor, which will increase my series inductance. So this needs to be addressed at the PCB level. Capacitors on RF lines. So you can see an arrangement here. So this is what is to be followed whenever we are dealing with RF signals on the PCB. So always better to have the width of my transmission line to be same as my width of my footprint pad. So that is always recommended. So this will make sure that okay, I will have my inductance intact when compared to, sorry, impedance intact when compared to the other signals. Inductor pads with RF signals. Short and same pad with access traces maintaining the original value of the inductance and the Q factor. So now if you ask what is Q factor is the ratio of inductive reactance to the resistance at a given frequency. So the more narrow the trace, it increases the inductance, but this can decrease the quality of the Q factor of the inductor. So RF inductors are carefully made to have a high Q factor and do not ruin it is what the strategy that we need to follow. So always make sure that do not have narrow traces as when compared to the shown in the left hand side what has to be implemented on the PCB. Return current path in RF signals. So in the left hand side you can see that there are no vias in the return path of my RF signal. On the right hand side you can see there are number of vias. So the return path will be too narrow when compared to the return path what is shown on the left hand side, which is to be implemented on the PCB. Layout discontinuities. So whenever we have, you can see there is clear RF lines with pad components at the same width as the RF lines and pad components on the RF lines. Whereas difference between component pad width and RF line widths, thermal reliefs and components placed in a way creating parasitic effects. So as I told, always follow the trace width what is to be followed as that of the pad, so that this will reduce the parasitic effects on the PCB. Now trace transition. So whenever we talk about trace transition, always try to have smooth transition what is shown in figure 1, and do not try to follow single step transition or multi-step transition, which creates discontinuity in the impedance and also there could be losses. And when placing test points on RF signals, try to avoid making a stub. So on the right hand side you can see that by placing the test point we have created a stub. So this is not the right way. So instead we can have the test point placed along the path of my RF trace. So pad component width. So you can see on the left hand side there is no transition required because we have followed the width same as that of the pad of my RF trace. And if it is taper transition, it's still well and good as far as you have taken care of your impedance requirement. But on the right hand side you can see that there is a single step transition, so which is not recommended for any RF application. So RF switch transitions. So on the right hand side you have a single step transition which is not recommended. Either you go for smooth transition or go for a tapered transition. So whenever we talk about package pad to RF line transition, whenever I have a BGA package, so always opt for smooth transition with the help of the polygons, and the other traces causing losses in high frequency where the one step transition and the other one is narrow single step transition, which is not recommended because of impedance discontinuity. Whenever we talk about RF bend, so an equivalent circuit representation of a right angle bend of a trace is shown on the right hand side. We have the inductance and capacitance. So why we need not have to follow right angle is because whenever I have frequency signals of more than 1 Gbps, the loss comes into picture. So why this loss happens is because if my trace geometry is not uniform, only then I will have this discontinuity in my impedance. So when the impedance discontinuity has, definitely we will have deflections as well as loss. So in the next slide we can see that the transition when it is 45 degree for less than 1 Gbps signals, it is fine, but arc routing is preferred. Why? Because the cross sectional area across is maintained uniform. So this is why we say that in RF we always try to follow arc routing. So not only RF, any signals which are more than 1 Gbps, 2 Gbps, ideally always follow arc routing. So ground flooding. So wherever we have space on the PCB, especially for my RF portion on the PCB, try to have proper ground flooding in that particular section of the PCB, and make sure that you do not create any islands on the PCB which are not connected and are floating. So these can radiate and can have a lot of impact on the design. So you can see that, okay, on the left hand side we have without metal shield, we have the grounding that has been done. On the right hand side, what we have done is for the entire section we have defined a metal shield area. So this metal shield area for the entire section of my RF is going to make sure that, okay, it is not going to have any noise that is going to be disturbing the adjacent digital circuitry or the analog circuitry. So as I told, power plane in RF, make sure that, okay, it is well within the ground plane, and also have a proper stitching of wires across the PCB to ensure that, okay, the fringing field effects will not be dominant in the design when we are dealing with EMI, EMC. Decoupling capacitor placement. So always make sure that, okay, you place the decoupling capacitor in the order of the value. So place 100 picofarad first, 10 nanofarad, 0.1 microfarad, and then 0.2 microfarad. So always go by ascending order of the value of the decoupling capacitor. As I told that, okay, whenever you place the decoupling capacitors, make sure that, okay, you are not going to create larger current loop area. So instead, always opt for smaller current loop area when you are placing decoupling capacitors. Some radiation generated by high frequency signals. So whenever you route any high frequency signal across the board edge, so definitely it is going to create fringing field effects on the edge of the PCB. So to make sure that always avoid any high frequency signal to be routed close to the edge of the PCB. Okay, so our next webinar will be on design for excellence in electronic product development. That will be in the month of February. So since Jan 26th will be the last Wednesday, that is on a holiday. So we just shifted the webinar to the next, that is on the February first week, that is the first Wednesday. So that on February 2nd, 2022, 4:30 p.m. same time, we will have the webinar. So for further registrations, please stay tuned. And I would like to wish all of you a very happy new year 2022. And thanks for supporting us in attending these webinars. And we would like to keep up the same tempo on conducting these webinars in the year 2022. Probably we will have some polls on LinkedIn on what topics that can be addressed on the webinars. Last year, I think in 2021, we probably had a poll on what to be on priority. So as per that priority, we add the DDRX technology, the HDI technology, and then the rigid flex technology. So this was sequentially followed based on whatever the interest that people showed. And now I would like to open the forum for Q&A. So probably you can type in your questions in the chat box and you can ask the questions. What are the tools you are using to? Yeah.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I was just telling about the chat.
Yeah. So what are the tools you are using to test these 5G based IoTs? So see, there is nothing specific that we are using as of now. So it is that the PCB that you develop and the test. As far as designing the PCBs and testing, we follow the same traditional procedure. Only thing is that, okay, for simulation, we may use different softwares that are available from ANSYS. We have HFSS, and so many other tools are also available from ADS in the RF specific. And based on that, we design the PCBs and we test it like the normal way we use the oscilloscopes to test the other PCBs. Any other specific question, you can type in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions. Any questions? Yeah, we have one more question. If we go for microstrip geometry in bottom layer, we can completely remove back drilling for 5G, right? Yeah, you can remove, but again, it depends on what are the number of layers that you are going to consider. So based on that, you can have that as an option. Are there any embedded software sessions also planned? Probably, let me check with my other teams. So probably if they are interested in conducting these webinars, definitely we would like to have 1 or 2 sessions on the embedded software also. So Likit, you can just keep yourself following us. So probably we will update when those sessions will happen. So they are planned for 2022. So probably we will keep you posted. Regarding 5G, if you go with bottom layer routing, again I told, right, it depends. It depends on what is the stack up. If it is a 2-layer stack up or it is a 4-layer stack up, it depends. So any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Raghavendra. I think if there are any questions, you all can contact us to the same email that you have received. And we wish you all a very happy, safe and healthy new year. Please stay tuned for the upcoming webinar. Thank you very much. Now I shall end the webinar. Thank you. Thank you.